Joining me on the program now from Barnabas Aid, Richard Drury. Richard, kia ora, good morning. Thanks for your time today.
Morning, Andrew. Morning, those who are viewing and listening.
This is a worrying trend, and it is difficult for us to get our heads around it here in the relative safety and freedom of Aotearoa, New Zealand. But some parts of the world where legislation is being brought into place, which increases the amount of persecution of Christians and decreases their rights and freedoms within the nation. Let's start with what's been happening in India recently.
Thanks. Yeah, we could talk about many parts of the world, Andrew. It's true, and in recent news, lawfare, etc., etc. But it's been a growing trend across the world. I think perhaps as nations have struggled with migration and their national identity and a reaction, in a sense. But yes, you're right. In places like, I'm going to focus on India and Sri Lanka, but I could be talking about Pakistan or Kyrgyzstan, even the UK and New Zealand. But particularly, we have traced in the past a few years that massive country of 1.4 billion Indians and the Christians at only 2.3%, particularly the Dalit community. And legislation, state legislation, it's called the Protection of Right to Freedom of Religion Bill in 2021. And it's really, in a sense, as you said, a balancing act. How do you protect vulnerable people, but how do you also allow people to have their freedom to express or freedom to change their religion?
Yeah.
And the particular wording, I want to get this right if I can for folk listening, is that those who solicit religious conversions by force, undue influence, coercion, allurement, or by any fraudulent means, or by promise of a marriage, you're enticing people to change their faith. It can be against the law in now 12 states in India. And it really affects the life of not just Muslims or minority communities, but particularly Christians. It can affect their ability to hold a prayer meeting.
Yeah.
It can affect their ability to meet in a church. It can affect their ability to share the Christian faith. And that can be construed by local magistrates or the mob, if you like, as enticing others by foul means. So it's increasingly difficult.
It is interesting that this. I mean, you look at the name of the law. I mean, this is a law about freedom of religion, but actually, I mean, put it in the New Zealand context. If you have a church service and a cup of tea afterwards, perhaps that's unfair enticement for people to come along to your church. You may be in breach of the law according to this legislation.
In fact, that's true, and certainly under state law. And in one sense, the underbelly or the worst side of that is the interpretation by the mob.
Okay.
It can be spread by rumor or word of mouth that someone has been enticed to become a Christian against their will or through marriage, that sort of thing. And completely untrue. A couple of cases where people were put in prison or a school that was using Bibles in school. A Bible was found in prison or a school that had the perfect right to teach Christianity was taken to court.
Something as simple as saying, hey, come along to our Bible study. We've got some scriptures we can give you. Would that fall foul of the law? Is this the sort of enticement that may get somebody in trouble?
This is the question. Because laws are great and laws are helpful, but how does one interpret them? What is coercion? What is allurement? I'm rather reluctant to say it, but I think even when I was in Africa, certain people were paying others to come to church. So under this legislation, interpreted by local magistrates, interpreted by the mob, can lead to violence. It can lead to breaking down of churches. It can lead to, in the worst case scenario, death.
Yeah, no, serious stuff indeed. You also mentioned Sri Lanka as well. Some new legislation in that part of the world, Richard.
Yeah, this is more recent. It's increasing. It's the registering of buildings since 2022, and of course, the registering of building is a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
It can protect you, so you are allowed lawfully to meet, But when certain constraints are put on it, like in certain parts of Central Asia, the number of people allowed to, it has to be over 500, has to be registered. If it's registered, of course, you are under the radar of the authorities.
Yeah.
They know who you are. But again, this is the penal code, articles 291 or 29B. It could lead to up to 2 years imprisonment, and it's under the Terrorism Act.
Wow.
So being a Christian, meeting together, interpreted by this kind of legislation, or local leaders, local influencers, like I dare to say, Buddhist monks can lead that can lead a whole mob, and you find yourself under the rage of your neighbours because simply for being a Christian and expressing yourself as a Christian.
And again, this type of thing, as you say, it's a little bit of a mixed bag in this regard, because this would apply to larger groups of Christians. This would apply to, hey, not just small groups meeting together in homes, but if God is doing something within a particular community and there are now hundreds of believers there, all of them meeting together, they're going to need somewhere to meet. But this building registration legislation is in fact opening them up to persecution and abuse.
It is, and it's very difficult, of course, to have sort of state or national law, but also the enforcement of it by those who don't know the law, but have interpreted such a way that they're antagonistic toward Christians, violently so in some cases.
Well, certainly thank you for drawing this to our attention, Richard. I would encourage people actually to find out more at the Barnabas Aid website. There are regular posts and news updates from many different parts of the world, and in particular, a wonderful resource, a different focus to pray for each day. There is a prayer diary. Encourage people to subscribe to that. You can find out more, barnabasaid.org. Richard, thanks for what you do. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, God bless, and thanks for the time. Appreciate it.
Hey, thanks very much for joining us in the Rhema studio. Thanks very much for watching the interview. It's kind of nice to have an audience, actually. And if you did like what you watched, then do give us a like, do give us the thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more interviews like that one, or perhaps even better, subscribe and those interviews will come straight to you. Don't forget to turn on your notifications, and we'll see you in the next one. Cheers.